Imagine walking through the bustling streets of New York City, horns blaring, street vendors shouting, skyscrapers towering above, when all the while, beneath your feet, an empire of shadows once thrived. This isn't the kind of empire you'll find in history textbooks or Hollywood blockbusters. No, this was an underground world ruled by whispers, violence, and a code of silence so unbreakable it became legend: the Mafia. Let's rewind to the early 20th century. Immigrants flooded into New York, chasing the American dream. Among them were Italian families escaping poverty and political instability. But for many, opportunity came not from hard labor, but from an intricate web of organized crime. The Mafia didn't just arrive in New York, it adapted to it, infiltrating its very fabric. Picture this: a dimly lit back room in a Little Italy cafe. Men sit around a table, cigars curling smoke into the air, voices low and measured. Deals are struck, money lent, protection promised, alliances forged. This was where the Mafia thrived, in the shadows, out of sight but never out of reach. From gambling and bootlegging to racketeering, their fingers stretched into every pie. And at the center of it all? The five families. In the 1930s, these five Mafia dynasties, the Gambino, Lucchese, Genovese, Bonanno, and Colombo families, divided New York like kings dividing a kingdom. Each family ruled its territory with precision, and their influence seeped into unions, construction, even the police force. They were untouchable. Or so they thought. But what made them so powerful? It wasn't just fear, it was loyalty. The Mafia operated under the omerta, a code of silence so sacred that breaking it often meant death. This bond of secrecy allowed them to build an empire right under the noses of law enforcement. And when the law did get too close, bribes and intimidation worked wonders. One of the most shocking examples of their reach was during Prohibition. Alcohol was outlawed, but speakeasies flourished. Who supplied the booze? The Mafia. They didn't just make money, they made fortunes. And when Prohibition ended, they simply shifted focus: drugs, loan sharking, illegal gambling. But the Mafia wasn't just about money and power, it was about drama. Rivalries between families often erupted into blood feuds. Take the infamous Castellameris War in the early 1930s. It was a brutal power struggle that left bodies in alleys and shook the underworld to its core. It also gave rise to Charles Lucky Luciano, the man who redefined the Mafia by forming the Commission, a governing body to mediate disputes and maintain order. Still, no empire lasts forever. The Mafia's golden age began to tarnish in the 1970s and 80s. Why? Wiretaps, undercover agents, and the unrelenting work of prosecutors like Rudy Giuliani. One by one, mob bosses were taken down, their empires dismantled. By the 90s, the Mafia's grip on New York had loosened. But the echoes of their reign remain. Today, you can still find traces of their legacy. Visit Little Italy, and you'll hear stories passed down through generations. Stroll through the old neighborhoods, and you might spot a building that once housed a clandestine meeting or a storefront that served as a front for illicit deals. The Mafia's story is one of power, loyalty, and inevitable decline. But perhaps what's most fascinating is how they managed to build an empire, not with skyscrapers or monuments, but with secrets, fear, and an unbreakable code. As you walk the streets of New York, remember, the city's greatest stories aren't always in plain sight. Sometimes, they're hidden, just below the surface.